This year has been great so far for shooter fans. We got sequels to some highly acclaimed games such as Doom and Half-Life. But Half-Life's sequel wasn't what most people wanted, but something different. Is it still good? What are some other shooters worth playing that released recently? You can find out in this video. Doom 3 was very graphically impressive when it was released almost 16 years ago, but ID Software made survival horror instead of the intense shooter everybody expected. However, in 2016 we got what everybody loved about Doom, and it was one of the best games released that year. What we got this year in Doom Eternal is direct sequel to that game, and it didn't disappoint. Our favorite Doom Slayer, also known to some as Doom Guy, has cleared Mars of armies of hell, now has its fortress of Doom, and it's time to clean up another planet. The Earth is not in the best condition, since the demons decided to turn it into their new home, and as our hero still does not agree with their practice, it is time for intervention. What is different and what makes it fights even more dynamic is that you will now have to use your chainsaw much more often. Glory kills are still a means of collecting health and ammunition, which you consume very quickly. You will in most cases procure by sawing the lowest tier of demons in various ways. No more using one weapon. The team wanted you to think a little better and use everything you have in your arsenal to fight the hordes that await you. In the last Doom, you were also able to improve various aspects of Slayer, and this time it was taken to a new level. Levels and arenas are much more vertical and full of opportunities for creative approach to conflicts. FPS game today can't do without a multiplayer component, so Doom Eternal is no exception. Instead of the modes that were available in the last game, ID Software has prepared a brand new one. Battle mode is an asymmetric 1 versus 2 experience in which one player plays as a Slayer and the other two as demons. Game can be finished in 10 to 15 hours, which in my opinion is the ideal duration, since its relentless pace can cause fatigue and repetitiveness in the long run. The first Half-Life game after almost 13 years is out, so while it's not a direct sequel, Alyx seems to have pushed the technical boundaries once again. This time it showed everyone what VR is capable of. Many players resented earlier announcements that they would need virtual reality equipment to play. Nonetheless, Alyx has made many people happy as it has proven to be the first high-quality, high-budget VR game. Half-Life Alyx plays like a first-person shooter. Players will see through the eyes of the 19-year-old heroine a dark world, subjected and occupied by mysterious aliens. Alyx has firearms that she has to use a lot, but she also has two special tools. With multi-tool, she has to point around the world again and again to solve puzzles. And she has two gloves with which she can snap objects like a strong magnet from a distance, similar to the notorious gravity gun in Half-Life 2. Alyx supports the essential methods of transportation popular in VR. If you have space, you can walk around with your own legs. If you only become aware of VR medium because of Alyx, you shouldn't jump into the cold water right away. Players need to have some VR experience. Longer game sessions are possible, but also exhausting. If you already had some experience in VR, you'll find all the options you'll need to feel good here. Metro Exodus is the third part of series set in the Russia destroyed by atomic bombs. It is a first-person shooter that is played exclusively in the single-player mode. This is one of the most graphically impressive games released to date. However, it comes at a cost. In one of the later levels, which is most photorealistic, you can't expect to play on maximum details at 60 FPS without 2080 Ti graphic card. Graphic is not only thing which is good in this game, it's more open world than previous entries. Exodus has an atypically many dialogue and monologue for a shooter. This is a great thing because the game through its characters shows the consequences of the post-apocalypse on the different types of people, which is not seen very often in games of this type. At one point, Artyom is asked a familiar question. Have people become terrible because of the war, or have they always been like that, and the war just got it out of them? Story in Exodus is great. After a long time spent underground, the protagonist, his wife, and a group of friends have discovered that the metro is not the only thing that exists and that there are survivors elsewhere. They come into a possession of a steam locomotive named Aurora and embark on a journey in a search of a location from which they will be able to make a new home. The game still works by being divided into chapters, and each takes you to a new location through 4 seasons. At each one, the new threats and residents will meet you, as well as the amount of freedom you will have. You will spend a lot of time on large maps if you are the type of person who likes to explore every corner, and if you are, you will be rewarded with additional equipment and weapons. The world you walk through is eerily ruined and gloomy, and is saved by some sunny days and moonlit nights. Abandoned and demolished buildings are full of remnants from the past that are there to remind you of how it would be nice if people didn't blow themselves up. Call of Duty in its best years told some really shocking stories. Lately, those stories have become less and less interesting for the situation to culminate with the removal of a single-player campaign from Black Ops 4. This year's Modern Warfare corrects that omission. Modern Warfare is realistic, occasionally shocking in its portrayal of modern warfare. Campaign lets us imagine for a moment how soldiers cope in situations where surrounded not only by enemies but also by civilians, and how they must follow the rules even when they know those rules are not correct. It is commendable that the game seeks to show that conflicts are most often not started by people with weapons but by politicians. This Call of Duty feels harder and more realistic. You eliminate enemies quickly, not like in other shooters where you have to shake half of a cartridge to shoot them down. The use of weapons in the game is great, and there are few novelties added. For example, you can place each weapon against a surface to gain stability. This would not be a Call of Duty without a robust multiplayer full of various maps, weapons, bonuses, and game modes. Gears 5 is newest entry in the long-running third-person shooter series. This adventure takes us through landscapes of vivid colors, across snow-capped mountains to a red deserts where lightning creates crystallized boulders. I would venture to say that this is the most different Gears so far. The change also happened to the protagonist because the main role is now played by Kate Diaz, a girl who has an enigmatic connection with the enemy force of locusts. Gears' basic formula hasn't changed much. It is still a third-person shooter in which you cling to objects seeking shelter along with the 2 other players, locally or online. Again, this is a game in which you can load the cartridge quickly or sloppily, and game in which opponents are cut with the chainsaw mounted on the rifle. The weapons in the Gears 5 are versatile and interesting to use, especially when it comes to very destructive missiles. In cooperative play, the number of players jumped from 2 to 3, with the third player not having the same experience as the other two because he does not play as COG soldier but in the role of a flying robot Jack. The robot has specific capabilities and can become invisible or revive itself, making it an ideal character for someone who is not very good at shooters. The campaign is only the first half of the Gears 5 because with it you can also get PvP versus and two co-op modes, Horde and Escape. Game is also available for only $5 on Xbox Pass, and you will be hard pressed to find so much fun for a little money. This covers what we think are best games from the FPS and TPS genre released recently. Leave your thoughts in comments. Did you get to play new Half-Life, or is the fact that it requires VR headset something that prevented you from playing? What do you think are best shooting games to play in 2020? If you like our video, share and subscribe, and see you in next video.